planet!
Hack the planet!
Woohoo! So, yeah. This is the bcast. Joining me this week is our one and only Geoff. Mal is sick with the flu this week, so she was not able to join us tonight. But, you know, we've got Geoff here, so hopefully we'll do a good show for you. And obviously, we just finished watching Hack the Planet. Yeah, no, Hackers, actually.
Hackers, such a good film.
So, yeah, Hackers. It's a great little movie. It's about hackers. It was introduced to me by Brian with a Y, one of our few listeners, several years ago, and it was my introduction to the movie itself, which was amazing. But it also introduced me to techno music, which soon, later on became a big part of my life. And it's interesting. It's like especially endearing to me. And we've not really mentioned this too much, if at all, on the show, but myself, Geoff here, and Mal all actually work in the IT field. So
it's our movie.
It really is. It hits close to home. It's something that we think about. I mean, I don't know if we all think about hackers all the time. Well, it's Geoff's favorite, second favorite movie.
Second favorite.
Having lived with him for about 2.5 years now, I can attest that it is oftentimes just playing in the background in the apartment, and I can't complain about it one bit because it's an amazing movie. So, here's the biggest question. Does it count as a B movie?
I want to say yes, just because, whereas it had a fairly cult following, it reeks of B-movie awesomeness.
See, I think that it does, and I've thought about this a lot since I mentioned it to you, I think, late Friday night, Saturday morning. Whether or not it counts, and I think there are certain things that make it specifically, like, more so a B movie than anything else, and let's just go with, if for no other reason, the fact that it's very dated. This movie came out in 1995. And all the technological specs that they mention by name are ridiculous.
Yes.
There's a scene where a young man gets excited about a 28.8 BPS modem, which is just laughable.
For those of you playing along at home, comparing to a computer that you would have gotten maybe when they first came out, you're looking at a 56K modem. So this is half of that, and it's exciting.
But, so, yeah, it gets dated with its specifics and technology. And then there's just other silliness, which is every laptop, and they're almost all laptops. There's only a couple of desktops, and they're like IBM business machines, like the clunky, nasty
stuff that businesses don't even really use anymore.
Right. Every single personal computer, which is a laptop, has this amazing display that will it doesn't reflect. It projects onto your face.
Yeah, it's a projector screen, and I really want to get my hands on one of these because when I'm looking at porn, I want Mike to be able to see it reflected on my face.
Right. It's been like since we started watching this movie so many years ago. We joked. I've been joking about like just getting like tan lines of like a cartoon character or a porn movie or something. It's been projected onto my screen, projected from my screen onto my face so hardcore that
it's funny you mention. I would shudder to think what would be stuck on my face, like a burn in from what I watch. I don't know. I would have to remind everybody that every film that I watch is legal in the countries that they were filmed in.
Yeah, I'd come in. And everybody would be like, why is there a picture of a giraffe getting blown on your face?
A giraffe is a beautiful animal. That, or you've played too much Resident Evil 6.
Or if you're like me, you fall asleep on the title screen. But yeah, no, so there is the projector screens, and I think one of the biggest things of it is just the way that they try to portray hackers. Now, I don't know that I've honestly met a lot of hackers, but my guess my guess is that the hackers that you do run into in real life are not like these sexy kids that are hanging out at clubs, having house parties. I mean, they're the kind of people that hide themselves in a basement. Or just in their house all the time. They don't have a tan. They've got those big old 80s glasses. I mean, maybe not exactly like that. A current day hacker probably could be okay, but in this movie, the hackers are like the cool kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the prevalent culture is just this tech culture. If you're not part of the tech crew, you're not part of anything. Which I find hilarious.
So, I mean, I've thought about it a decent deal, and the final word in my mind is, I think it does count as a B movie. It's kind of got its own little cult following these days, and it does have just so much of the, I guess, exploitable content. But that being said, it's just a classic, man. Like I said, our friend Brian showed it to me, and this was it was in the mid-90s. Fell in love then and just kept watching it over and over and over again for years. And I know you're the same way. I mean, how did you first run across the movie?
I remember you were watching a piece of it, and I came over like I frequently did, and I fell in love right off the bat. And interestingly enough, when I used to stay with you all the time, when you would head off to bed and I stayed up, I would 9 times out of 10 throw Hackers in and just put it on and watch it. So, yeah, I was introduced by you and quickly became addicted.
Growing up, I had a movie that I did that with, too. It wasn't Hackers, it was Richie Rich.
Really? Richie Rich? Interesting.
I don't know what it was. I would stay up all night watching Cinemax and HBO, watching, little bits of horror movies, or just, sleazy Skinemax type movies. Basically, I would, I'd stay up all night in the summer for the chance to see some boobs.
Right, no. That's understandable.
And so from doing that, I'd watch all these, kind of ridiculous sex dramas or horror movies and all this kind of stuff, and I'd be up all night. And at the end of the night, it's like, all right, I need to go to bed. And so I just wanted something that was like a palate cleanser. And so for me, that was Richie Rich. It was just
I get you.
I don't know what it was I loved about that movie. I think there's the cool mechanical bee. There's the smell of the dynamite smelling thing. I just thought it was neat technology crap. And
hey man, it had the chef from Ernest Goes to Camp in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he played the inventor.
So yeah, it just I would watch that every night, and so yeah, it sounds like he did a similar thing with Hackers.
Oh yeah.
Which was a much better movie.
That was my wind down. I remember. I remember I've watched that movie so many times. It was on Netflix for a while, and holy shit, I must have logged maybe 30 to 40 viewings of it.
Yeah, I remember when you were living you were still living at home for a while. You would have 2 screens in your room at all times, and you would be playing some kind of video game on one, and the other one would either be playing Hackers or The Matrix.
Yeah, that was good times.
And that's just, it's amazing stuff.
I'd like to think that those 2 movies could mash together. You could have Johnny Lee Miller hacking the Matrix and Keanu Reeves fighting back against it. Another interesting subplot of Hackers that most people don't notice is it's the first time that Angelina Jolie started marrying her co-stars.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, her and Johnny Lee Miller were briefly married. This was before the Billy Bob craziness with the vials of blood around their necks. Yeah. But yeah, this was the first movie where she married a co-star.
I can support that. You get a lot of that in Hollywood. I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous to me, because you always run into that, the one that I always remember is is Jim Carrey married the girl from Dumb and Dumber, the female love interest.
Lauren Holly?
Yeah, Lauren Holly. I'm pretty sure he married her at one point. And I know Ben Stiller married the girl from Zoolander.
Yeah, that's his wife. I can't remember her name. I wanted to seem like a badass, but I just can't think of it.
I mean, you already...
Something Stiller.
You already know better than me. I mean, honestly, Johnny Lee Miller or something? I didn't know that name. I was going to call him Dade Murphy the entire show.
As he should be.
But yeah, so I mean, that was always a weird like Hollywood thing, and it was interesting to know that she was married to him because I mean, I don't know, that seems like the most wholesome marriage she's ever had.
Right, right.
I mean, not for nothing, Billy Bob Thornton is actually a pretty good actor, and I like him, but that just, you know, he's what, 20 years older than her,
Right, right.
and like just creepy. That's just a weird match.
I mean, just to let this sink in further, let's stop and think about Angelina Jolie busting onto the scene. I remember her at some award show. She took a lot of grief because she was there with an attractive man she was hanging all over, which later turned out to be a cousin or some family member. And I mean, just since then, she's of course exploded.
Yeah, she's always had an interesting path. I mean, like Hackers, I like. It was from her earlier era where she wasn't quite so big.
Yeah.
From this period, I remember Hackers and Foxfire. Did you ever see Foxfire?
I did see Foxfire. Go ahead, sorry.
No, yeah.
I was just going to say, an interesting postscript to Foxfire for all you video game nerds out there. Hetty Burgess, I believe her name is, did the voice acting for Yuna.
Okay.
And in Foxfire, she appears topless. So if you ever want to see Yuna topless, there you go.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie is also topless in both Hackers and Foxfire. A little sub note is that how many times have you accidentally called that movie Firefox?
I almost did right there, as you heard. It's on tape. Listen to me, it's on tape. It's a common mistake to make. Firefox, Sly Fox, you know.
Yeah.
There's foxes everywhere.
But yeah, no, it was this whole era for Angelina Jolie, which I cared for, I think. Like, where she had the short hair, and she wasn't quite so crazy. Like, I don't know what it is with her anymore. She's adopting African children. She's, I mean, she was Lara Croft, but I honestly don't know if I like her as Lara Croft.
I found it funny that after the first Tomb Raider movie, they took out her two co-stars, which were her right and left breast. She refused to continue to be enhanced.
Oh, yeah?
Because I don't know if anybody knows it or not, but in the movie, if they didn't digitally make her bust bigger, they put something in there. Because Lara Croft is, of course, incredibly busty.
Of a higher cup size than Angelina Jolie.
Yes.
I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about Angelina Jolie, but she is barely the star of this film. I mean, she's the main love interest, so she bears mentioning. But I mean, the whole story for anybody who has made enough poor life decisions to have not seen Hackers at this point.
Yeah.
It focuses around a young hacker named Dade Murphy. His alias originally was Zero Cool. The movie opens on a house getting raided by the police, and we go to this trial, and it's for a hacker named Zero Cool who shut down, what was it?
1,507.
I knew you'd know. 1,507 computer systems nationwide with a virus that he wrote. And, you know, at the trial, it pans down, and it is an 11-year-old boy with an amazing spiked haircut.
Yes, he's rocking some very hardcore spikes.
And so he is forbidden to own a computer or a touch-tone phone until his 18th birthday.
Which, you know, back in the 80s and early 90s, that had to be hell. Everywhere you called, it was like, make sure you call from a touch-tone phone. Even if you called Pizza Hut, because you had to press the buttons to figure out what you wanted. Oh, man.
Well, to this very day, if you ever have to use an actual phone system, it's always going to be touch-tone. Mm-hmm. Which you can fake, as they do later in this movie, with like doing the little tapping the hang-up thing if you've got a physical old phone.
Right, a little bit of freaking.
But you can't even do that now with like a cell phone. But
nope.
Of course, there's no such thing as a rotary cell phone, so I guess that's kind of a stupid comment to make. But
I think Apple's working on that add-on, aren't they? You can slap it onto your iPhone, turn it into a rotary phone.
Well, you know, because the whole touchscreen thing is just getting a bit too...
Right, it's a little too mainstream.
Yeah. Somebody's gotta go retro with some rotary. iPhone action, but yeah, no. So yeah, he can't have a computer or a touch-tone phone until his 18th birthday. So we skip past that entire boring part, and we see him flying to New York on his 18th birthday.
Yes.
And
we have a very cool transition. The city landscape, we're viewing it as if we're looking down from the plane, slowly transitions into a computer board. And, I mean, it's a pretty cool effect, honestly. I bet for the time it was really amazing.
Yeah.
But as you look at it, you're just like, Jesus, what kind of capacitors are those? I mean, I've never seen a capacitor that was higher than maybe, an inch and a half. But these look to be about 5-6 inches.
And that continues to be a theme throughout the entire movie. The freakish proportions of the way they try to portray computers. But, yeah, so we don't necessarily have to account for all details in this, but...
Yes, absolutely.
Suffice it to say, he comes to New York. It's his 18th birthday. He christens it by trying to hack into a local television station, OTV, to play some Outer Limits episodes.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. And while he's hacking it, he runs into another hacker, somehow, who's, upset that he turned off her racist TV shows. The channel was playing some kind of infomercial about this guy. He's like, these Native Americans and so-called Latinos, talking about how they were inferior stock or something.
Yes.
And it's a ridiculous something to have there. But what happens when the hacker girl is like, hey, you're on my turf? You're forced to realize that she was trying to watch that.
She was enjoying her show, and he interrupted it.
But yeah, he goes to high school. He meets a group of hackers, and
well, I guess technically though, I can't think of his name for the life of me, but the Phantom Freak, he's a freaker.
Yeah.
I guess we could consider him a real life hacker, but in the traditional sense,
true.
It's a different format. That's more dealing with computer systems, or not computer, phone systems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of the hacking at the period of this movie had to do to some extent with freaking, because it's not like they were freaked about a 28.8 modem. This is pre 56K.
Yeah.
He goes to this high school completely and totally overrun with hackers for whatever reason.
Unbelievably so.
And the whole thing, the general thing that happens is one of them hacks into the wrong system. He deals with the wrong person, and they start getting blamed for this computer virus that is going to turn over some oil tankers, and they have to fight against their accuser and prove that they didn't do it and expose him. Blah 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 blah. It's the plot. But I mean. And we touched on this a little bit, but we're talking everybody at this high school is like a hacker. They're all just, beautiful people. They party, they have sex.
High-end, posh New York school.
Yeah, and, hackers, I think I might be oversimplifying it sometimes, but I just imagine overweight nerds with, sight problems and, trouble dealing with people. I mean, I know these people. I am these people. I have, semi-crippling social anxiety that I deal with. I'm not hitting up nightclubs or anything like that. I'm not saying I'm a hacker. I am a computer enthusiast, and I work in the IT department.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, man. That's definitely the prevailing thought process on hackers. Is they're this kind of... I mean, it's funny because we put them in this level, and I mean, if you look at some of the greats, which you can do an easy Wikipedia search of, they're all actually kind of normal looking dudes, thin, kind of unassuming. But for the most part, when you see a guy on a computer, you want to think that he's just some overweight, balding, lonely guy that's just like, "Hi, stab at thee." So,
but yeah, so all craziness aside, amazing techno soundtrack. It is one of the earlier films with Matthew Lillard.
yes, Matthew Lillard, very, very, very talented actor.
Yep. If you know him from anywhere else, there's many different places you can look. I first saw him in the original Scream.
Yes.
He does well in there. He kind of comes in his own in SLC Punk.
Excellent movie. Excellent
You know,
movie.
even if you're not into punk, it's just this amazing movie, based on a comic series, I believe, actually. One that I have not seen in person. I'll have to check that out at some point, actually, but...
It does impart the knowledge upon you that only posers die.
That's right. So if everybody would just stop fucking posing...
Then we wouldn't have to worry about shit.
But yeah, he in the Scream, sadly, a lot of people will recognize him as Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo movies. Not that that's necessarily a bad role, but he, with stuff like Hackers, SLC Punk, and Scream on his resume...
There's better works to recognize him for.
Yeah, he deserves more for that. And then there is Dade Murphy. Johnny Lee Miller, and he has been on some other things. He had a show called... He played a lawyer, I don't remember.
Interestingly enough, there's a very good movie with him, with Robert Carlyle, who played in Trainspotting and movies of that era.
Yeah?
Or type. English actor, very talented. It's called Plunkett and McLean.
Yeah.
Okay. They're basically two, I think they're like 17th, 18th century con men. Very interesting movie, definitely worth checking out. So, I mean, yeah, Johnny Miller does have a pretty wide little background. I don't think he ever reached any huge commercial success, though.
I think it was Seth that was telling me earlier today that he's currently playing Sherlock in the TV series. Is that him?
Is he? I don't know. My girlfriend's mom actually watches that show. She'd be the one to answer that question.
Let's bust out some IMDb while we're at
it.
I think it is.
Shameless plug. IMDb for all your movie fact-finding needs.
Anybody that listens to this podcast knows we spend entirely too much time on IMDb, but yeah. Yeah, my friend Seth had said that Johnny Lee Miller is now...
Oh my gosh, it is him. He's English in it.
Yep.
I don't know if he's supposed to be.
He's in Dark Shadows, of all things. He's in Trainspotting. Oh, that's right, he is in Trainspotting. And yeah, he plays...
Sherlock.
He's, Morgan Fairchild in Aeon Flux, I remember. Yeah. He's in the Sherlock Holmes show now. He plays Sherlock.
Morgan Fairchild. Was that her...
Or no, it's Orrin Goodchild.
Oh, okay.
I think it was her...
Like the love interest from the cartoon?
Yeah, the on-again, off-again.
Right.
Half love interest, half, opposing force. God, I'm bad with words right now. The lawyer show I was talking about back in the day, I was trying to remember, was Eli Stone.
Huh.
It's an interesting story. He's had like a stroke or something, and so he starts seeing things, but they tend to help him with his case.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting show, but he played a character named Jordan Chase in Dexter.
Huh.
I don't quite remember. I think I do a little bit, actually, but anyways, he's been in a lot of things. Then there's Joey.
Yes.
Jesse Bradford.
Jesse Bradford.
Who the only thing I've seen him in since has been I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
I believe he was also in Clock Stoppers. I believe it was called, the Nickelodeon movie.
Quite possibly.
About time travel, or not time travel, but being able to freeze time.
Yeah, Clock Stoppers, 2002.
I remember that movie.
He also plays a love interest in Bring It On.
Because I know that anybody that's a fan of this show loved them some Bring It On.
It's actually not that bad of a movie. I wanted to hate it, but in many instances...
I should have known, Mike.
No, in many instances, dating women has got me watching movies that I never wanted to. And, sometimes I just can't.
Oh, let's not forget Fisher Stevens.
Fisher Stevens.
None
No.
other than the Plague.
The play.
He is the main antagonist.
Yeah, he's this kind of douchebag hacker that got on as a security agent, and he is the one that is pointing the finger at all of our hacker friends. And
Now, you guys will know him if you've ever seen one of the most excellent movies of all time, Short Circuit.
Yes.
Excellent movie. We all remember Johnny Five, but the bumbling Indian scientist with the very racial accent is none other than Fisher Stevens, Mr. The Plague.
Ben Javiri. Yeah, that's him. I also just went past this, but I saw he's in, what is it? Super Mario Brothers, the movie, as somebody named Iggy.
Interesting.
So
I think if you browse on there, you might see that he was also in an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I think that's quite possible. Frasier, he's in Daria. Is at college yet? Hope and Faith, On the Couch, Factotum. It is. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Lyle Corman. So yeah, he's been around. But yeah, he's amazing in this film specifically.
Yes, very much so.
Let's see here. Let's look at we got Nikon here. Let's see what Nikon's been up to.
Lord Nikon, Paul Cook.
Oh, he was in The Crow.
Interesting.
Who he plays?
First guy killed.
Yeah, I think he plays the fun boy in The Crow. Forgot all about that. Not that matters much. We got off subject. God, this does not work as well as it does in a PC. But yeah,
And to jump back to Jesse Bradford for just a moment, if any of the listeners out there would like to find a nice, enjoyable little piece of dialogue, even if you don't want to see all of I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, Jesse Bradford's Pancake Witch speech is one of the best things I've ever heard.
Yeah, it is. Jesse Bradford's everything in that movie is terribly misogynist, so I'll warn that right now. But every last bit of it is hilarious, and that whole movie is worth watching. You may hate me for recommending it, but
Based on the popular Tucker
Max book by the same name. Let's see what the freak has done. Not a whole lot. Dangerous Minds, Con Air, Daylight. This guy's got a rap sheet here. Touched by an Angel.
My grandma used to watch that show.
All I can see when I look at Touched by an Angel is, show us on the doll where the angel touched you.
You don't have to hurt anymore.
But yeah, it's just, oh man, it's hard to explain if you don't watch it all the time. It's a period piece. Every piece of computer knowledge they drop is just so out of date and somewhat wrong. And
if you there's no replacing the just interest that you can have based upon their limited computer resources. Just to hear it's got a PCI bus. Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Now, and I always kind of faulted it for this, but it occurs to me, there's not a single recognizable operating system in this movie, but it does occur to me that if they were hackers, they might all be running customized Linux skins. So,
yeah,
I might have killed my own argument there, but
they did Ubuntu before it was cool.
But, if you are much of a computer person, you will recognize that there's not a single Mac, PC, any kind of interface in there that you'll ever recognize.
Joey's computer is recognized as being a Mac operating system. It's got the old look that we remember from schools, but that would make sense since he's fledgling.
True.
He's not yet become a major hacker, so he's got a stock computer.
Yeah, he is not, as we know, elite.
Yes, he is not elite. I always wanted to think that was elite, but unfortunately, it is just elite.
You know, I could hear either said in the movie, elite or elite. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a fun little movie.
I mean, you'll laugh, you'll cry. You know, but before the end of it, you've experienced every emotion you can imagine.
Oh, and let us not forget, what was it, Razor and Blade.
Yes.
There's like a hacker TV show, which I don't think it ever completely explains how they got it, because like it just seems like it showed up by hacking airwaves to these people's houses or something like that.
If you say the name of the show, you know what's going to happen.
The show isn't indeed called Hack the Planet.
Hack the Planet!
Hack the Planet! And yeah, I don't know. It's like these two gay Japanese people in in way too much makeup.
One of them, I would argue, is painted like a geisha.
Yeah. It's a whole interesting thing. They're an interesting thing, and they're pretty much there to afford the opportunity where at the end they need like a hacker army. So it seems like they created this hacker TV show to give like a network of hackers that you can tap into.
I would like to think that the founders of Anonymous sat down, watched this movie, and are like, fucking, we can do this.
That's right.
Some Foxy and Mass, and we're in. So...
True.
I mean, you know, and it's funny because this movie influences so much further on. I mean, I'll keep it no secret. I think that Anonymous is amazing, and everything that they do amazes me. I wish I was even a quarter of any type of hacker that they could be, but it's just there's no replacing what this movie gives you the potential for. You look at it and you're like, wow, being a hacker could be fucking sweet. I can watch whatever I want on TV. I can change my school schedule.
Yeah.
So it can make a very big impact on you, especially if you're tech savvy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I could see where this movie does kind of plant the seeds for people to be interested in hacking in the first place. Like, I hear about hackers, and honestly, I don't really see a point to it. You know, who wants to access secure databases? Like, to me, it's all like, oh, that stuff's just all full of data I don't really want. But you know,
there's this universal appeal to being able to say that I can see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, I guess. I mean, for me, hacking would be more about fucking with people. Like, just randomly put pictures on their desktops and stuff.
Yeah, true. I mean, I have, in my years growing up, run into many people who have claimed to be hackers. I mean, everybody's got that friend who claimed that they hacked Yahoo. Or
hacked their email account.
Yep.
Hacked the Matrix. I mean... I had friends who claimed they could code in URL. Listen to me. Who could code in
Unix?
No, HTTP.
HTTP.
Because they could put it HTML because they could put a picture on MySpace. It's like, yeah, I can do it. You have to /image /description, and it's just like you guys are killing me. You're not hacking anything.
Yeah. I mean. It's always fun. You hear those people. I mean, I grew up with my cousin Ryan, who was a very decent web programmer.
Yes.
And so, like, I had that to grow up with. My dad is currently and was when I was growing up a technician as well. He worked in IT field before I mean, honestly, he graduated from an electrician to a technician because there was a need for it. He's like, well, electrician's good, but what do you think about these computer things? You think you kind of get your head around that? And he's like, yeah, why not? And so, I mean, my dad just kind of fell into it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's always been an amusing movie, and as much as we're saying about the bad technology and all the like laughable this, that, and the other, it is a very entertaining movie.
Yes. 2 enthusiastic thumbs up.
Yeah, you can just sit there and you can watch it over and over again, and you have.
I would definitely say it's a movie worth going out of your way to find. Go to Disc Replay. I picked up a copy for $3.33.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to do the same as well, because I know I own this movie, but Lord help me, I tried to look for it the other day, couldn't find it, so I'm going to buy another copy, because a life without hackers is really not worth living.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that being said, Hackers, I can't recommend it enough. It's a good film, and it's definitely got its B qualities, whether you want to say it or not. I mean, a lot of times this podcast seems like it's a specifically horror podcast, and that's because so much of what B movies are ends up being with horror too. But I think it's important to realize that there's B movies in all walks of life. And Hackers is definitely one that's just much more comedic, and you know,
you get the horror nerds that say, you know, they lay the smack down.
Mm-hmm.
B movies, that's our shit. I
Yeah.
mean, when you hear about a B movie queen, you're looking at someone who's done a ton of horror films.
Yep. Yeah.
Just Karen Black, people like that. Those are considered the queens of B movies. But, I mean, it's important to know that even with A-list stars, which Hackers has, they weren't A-list at the time, even with A-list stars, though, you can easily make a B movie.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the, like, our website is bcastcult.com. That came about not because we were trying to start a cult around our podcast so much, but because, to me, B-movie and cult film are synonymous terms. And
Yeah.
And so, like, you'll run into, like, your Hackers, which has kind of a cult following, or another movie I love dearly, and we may get to eventually, is Dazed and Confused. And that's kind of got its own cult following, and it's not exactly a B movie, but it's not necessarily not either, so... but yeah, this... anyways. But yeah, that's Hackers, But yeah, before we started Hackers Night, I saw you watching a movie that is a favorite of mine.
Ah, yes.
Well, I don't know, favorite. It's one that I like a lot. There's way too many movies for me to really list favorites all that often.
Yes. I cannot get a favorite movie out of you to save my life.
But you were watching Tales from the Dark Side. And yeah, I didn't know anybody else even knew this movie existed.
Oh, I love that movie. I've loved it for so long. So many shout-outs in that movie that you can see. There is basically the premise of the movie is there's a central story with 3 wraparounds. The central story is a young Matthew Lawrence is, which by the way, Matthew Lawrence, if you want to check out something awesome he's done, the Superhuman Cyber Samurai Squad, amazing, such a great show. But I might have that wrong, sorry. But the plot is he's basically locked up in a woman's kitchen, and she is preparing to cook him.
Right.
He delays, much like Scheherazade, by telling stories. And three stories get told. The first one is about a mummy, which features a very young... Actually, there's 3 actors in it. 2 actors and an actress. Very young, almost hard to recognize. You have Julianne Moore, Christian Slater,
right,
and the ever-amazing Steve Buscemi.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the first story is it's called Lot 249. It is about a mummy. And basically, Steve Buscemi's character is like some type of college professor or just a collector of the occult. And he gets this mummy in, and inside of the mummy is a scroll that can resurrect the dead. So Steve Buscemi has it murder the people that he feels have slighted him. But the most interesting thing about that is there's one point where one of the characters, Steve, is sleeping on the couch.
Yeah.
If you look very closely at the TV before it pans off, you can see a screen from the amazingly talented George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
It is the scene where the maintenance zombie is trying to crawl. I think it's Roger, the blonde commando. I think I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's the scene where the maintenance zombie is crawling on him and he stabs it in the head with a screwdriver.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of. I mean, you've got 3 up and coming actors and actresses in it. It's a pretty good story overall. It's a little dated now. Like, it's probably not as scary as it could have been.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an interesting little sideshow. And I mean, this movie is on Netflix.
Right.
So anybody listening that has Netflix and hasn't seen this movie, I recommend checking it out.
Now I mean to ask, I kind of remember the Mummy story. That I have not seen this movie in a while.
No, yeah.
And there's only one story that I remember very clearly about it, aside from the wraparound story. So the Mummy story, is there a point at it where there's a girl who pretends to be the mummy's wife, or is that something else?
I think you're thinking of something else.
I think that's a Tales from the Crypt episode then.
I don't since I'm recommending this to everyone and it's on Netflix, I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away the end because there is kind of a neat little twist that's interesting. But no, not in this one. This one is just the mummy wrecking shop, getting revenge for what was done to him.
All right. Then the next one I is not the one that I remember, but I do know it has something to do with a cat of some kind.
Yeah, it is appropriately enough titled "A Cat from Hell."
Okay.
And features none other than our very own apartment cat, Gaz.
Nice.
It's about a millionaire shut-in who created a drug that needed to something that they needed for the drug came directly from testing on cats.
Okay.
And he admits that at some point him and his firm had killed over 5,000 cats. So a demon cat is sent to haunt him. At first he lives there with his sister, one of her friends, and himself. And the sister gets killed by the cat, and interestingly enough, he hires an assassin to come kill the cat. Okay. Played by none other than Buster Keaton.
Nice.
Which if somebody out there recognizes this, mad props. Buster Keaton had a singing career. Like, is that you, Santa Claus?
Oh yeah, I do remember.
So yeah, he's in there as an assassin that's hired to kill this cat. It's a pretty interesting story. It kind of harkens into the vein of kind of like a Pet Cemetery thing. Okay. It kind of feels like that for me. But another interesting movie scene in there. Buster Keaton's waiting in a room for the cat to come in, and in the background you can see a show playing, which is George Romero's Martin. Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of shout-outs to him because he, of course, did... People consider Tales from the Dark Side to be the spiritual Creepshow 3. Okay. Since it never happened, they consider this to be that, so... But yeah, basically, it's about a demon cat from hell. What else is there that you could want? Pretty good.
Exactly, yeah.
Definitely worth checking out. The ending is disgustingly fantastic, so watch it.
Nice. And there is, of course, the third one, which is the one that I remember always, and it's about this little gargoyle that happens upon this artist once upon a time.
Yep. Do you remember the name of it?
No, I do not.
Now, this is only because I just watched it, but it's The Lover's Vow. Yep.
I don't remember all the details. Here's my pure memory of it, and you can correct anything I don't remember properly. Gargoyle comes to the artist. He was going to kill him, but for some reason he chooses not to, and says they'll spare his life so long as he never tells anybody what he saw. And then he goes on to live a normal life for about 10 years, meets a woman, gets married, has kids. But somewhere along the line, he decides that he trusts his wife so much that he wants to share this with her. And, well, you find out what happens when you break a promise to kind of demon, more or less.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, it was that was just like it's the gargoyle. I mean, it looks. I was watching that with you just recently. It looks kind of cheesy by today's standards, but it always stuck with me for some reason or other.
Interestingly enough, though, that movie was made in 1990.
Really?
So I mean, if you look at it, that movie's now 22 years old.
Yep.
And that's not horrible. It's one of the kind of better prosthetic jobs I've seen. When it tries to talk, it looks really cheap.
Yeah.
But I mean, aside from that, it's fairly decent. But yes, Tales from the Dark Side, very good. And then of course we after that point you have the conclusion of the wraparound story,
right.
which is fairly entertaining.
Yeah. The wraparound story is quite nice. I like the there's they do that in all kinds of movies, but I like the one in this one quite a bit as well. And then I was looking it up on IMDb earlier, and it was saying Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. To your knowledge, was there ever like a TV series or like a comic series based on it?
To my knowledge, no. No, I mean, as far as the TV series goes, that's kind of tough because it could have been. I mean, it's one of those things where it easily could have been like an old DC comic book.
Yeah.
That was Tales from the Dark Side in this, but as far as I know, no, it wasn't a TV series. If we're wrong, correct us. That's why we have comments, people.
Yeah. Yeah, so no real clue as to whether or not there's actually a TV show for that, but as you pointed out, it could have easily been a continuation of any kind of a Tales from the Crypt or the
something like that, yeah.
So yeah, yeah. And one last movie that has been brought back up for recently for many different reasons, but it's one that you and I have both seen for the most part. There's a movie called Megan is Missing.
Yes.
Now, if anybody's out there who wants to watch this movie, it is on Netflix streaming, and it's a pretty disturbing little horror film. Now, you'll start watching it, and you will just think you're watching like an after-school special. It's not filmed very fancily. It is about like there's two 14-year-old girls, one of whom is kind of sexually promiscuous and just kind of not living her life right and all kinds of stuff. And then the other one's way more innocent, but she's best friends with the girl Megan, who's not living her life quite right. And it's the story of how Megan gets kidnapped and goes missing, and her friend Amy, I believe it is, tries to look after her and runs afoul of the man who indeed kidnapped Megan.
Yes.
And it's just kind of like a, don't talk to strangers, don't give out your information on the internet kind of a movie. Up until the very end, where the last thing we see is uncut footage from Amy's camera of her being kept in this guy's basement in what looks kind of like a dungeon. There's some insinuated rape, and then there's just some disturbing gore, and like you don't actually see a whole lot except for there's like a scene where you see Megan's body.
Yes.
I guess kind of spoilers. There's a reason Megan is missing.
Yes.
But the stuff that the stuff that you see is enough to get your mind going, and it's just really disturbing. Now, I came across this movie. There's a comic show that I went to, and this girl that I ended up talking to at the comic show told me about it. This girl later on turned out to be kind of a little bit off-center.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty friendly for a while, but she came to the conclusion that I was stalking her on a social network by just, using the social network the way it's intended in the first place. Whatever. But, all things come... Yeah, I watched this movie, and it's pretty disturbing. I told you about it. You ended up watching it. You have any thoughts on this movie, or...
I mean, it's the first part of the movie, like you say, is just like it's webcam footage.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell it's just two girls chatting back and forth. They dance on the camera, blah blah blah. It just seems kind of you don't know what you're getting into with it. It's shot in the, I want to call it mockumentary style.
Okay, yeah,
not so much mockumentary like we're making fun of something, but they're acting like this is all serious footage, a la Blair Witch.
Yeah, it's often referred to as the found footage genre.
Found footage genre. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, very interesting. The ending is downright grotesque. I couldn't imagine anything worse than what happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely one worth checking out.
Yeah.
And
I've read some reviews, and I've seen people say that this is like a must see movie for parents, just to know what to prepare your children for. And
yeah, I could see that.
It's scary to think that that's something that you have to consider a must see. It's like, this is what you need to warn your children of. I think this is in excess of what you need to warn your children about, but still, I mean, I guess it makes a good point.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at forefront in the news right now is the girl out of Canada.
Oh,
Amanda. The last name is escaping me right now.
This is the girl that committed suicide.
The girl that committed suicide after being stalked online.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with this story, I just know it secondhand myself. But it's apparently this girl was talked into flashing her breasts on a webcam to some stranger, and she did, and the picture got kind of put out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy that took it had said, do something a little bit more, or this is going to go to your family,
or it goes to everyone.
And he made good on that threat. And so, apparently it really negatively affected her life, and she eventually had to move and, committed suicide because of all the pressure she felt she was under.
Yes.
So, I mean, these kind of things do happen. It is worth noting that, you should be careful.
Right, you never know who's on the other side of something.
But yeah, if for no other reason than this movie draws the point home so gruesomely, and it's kind of like a bait and switch. You just don't expect anything that bad to happen in this movie with the way it starts.
Right.
Right,
completely catches you off guard.
So yeah, when stuff actually starts, I was expecting it because I was told this is what happens. And, if you watch this movie, you'll, of course, be expecting it too. But if anybody would have just watched this movie on their own accord and have the twist come up, I could see them being dumbfounded.
I mean, it's honestly, I don't know if anybody out there has ever seen them, but there are commercials they've made in different countries or even here about the dangers of texting, the dangers of drinking and driving, that are pretty shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, a simple internet search will show you those. But this movie almost seems like an hour and, 15, 30 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
Like an hour and a half commercial for, don't trust, be ever vigilant,
Yeah.
To quote Mad Eye Moody. Constant vigilance.
Yeah, I mean, and the story thing here is that, this guy is supposed to be some, teenager surfer guy, but he makes an excuse. He makes a couple of different excuses for why his webcam doesn't work, so that they can't see him personally. They just have to rely on an image he showed them. And so it's just one of those things where it's I mean, I for one, I have actually done internet dating. I've, met girlfriends that way. The thing is just to be careful. Don't meet... And I don't want this podcast to turn into a PDA or anything like that, but...
Hey, When you listen to the bcast, you learn things.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're gonna mess around with people online, just be careful. Like, if you're gonna meet somebody, do it publicly as possible.
Right.
And don't be afraid to get the fuck out if you don't like what you see. But yeah. So I mean, as far as movies go, it's a good shock value movie. It will. I mean, one of the things that I like in horror movies anymore is like something that will actually kind of scare me, and this is something that does it just because it shocks you so much. It kind of like it almost to the point some days where like to get somebody to be actually scared by a movie, you almost have to hit them over the head with a sledgehammer, and this is kind of like the emotional equivalent of that. It's just kind of like it lulls you into like a sense of safety or something, and then it just hits you over the head real hard.
I mean, the craziest thing about it is this movie, there's precedence. This shit has happened.
Yeah.
And it's easy to just think, fuck, what if that was me?
Yeah.
I mean, so definitely.
But yeah, so, it's a powerful film, and it's worth at least one time watch.
Right.
Megan is missing. So, yeah, we have, this last Friday, I went and saw Harley Poe in concert, and afterwards I hung out with Joe Whitford for about an hour or so afterwards. And this is one of the reasons this movie came up. We got to talking about kind of messed up horror films, and I mentioned this one to him, and it's one he hadn't heard of before. So yes, we still have our Joe Whitford Harley Poe episode coming up. I talked to him on Friday. He had some good ideas for movies he wanted to watch. He seemed pretty excited about it, and he was asking me if the other members of the band, Christian, Wes, if they could come along. And I'm of the opinion, the more the merrier. These people are married, they have children, they have lives, so the details are still in the works and getting confirmed and such, but I'm pretty excited that possibly next week we will be recording our Harley Poe episode, watching some movies that Joe has chosen, and just getting to sit down and talk about them for a while. And I'm pretty excited about that. So, there's that we've got coming up, and
the return of Mal.
Yeah, the return of Mal, yeah. Hopefully Mal will be feeling better by next week. We can get her back on here. My friend William wants to come along and be on the episode with Joe Whitford as well, so there's that's possibly coming up. And, yeah, we have our website, thebcastcult.com, and we have the Bcast with Mike and Mal on Facebook. Just, comment on the website, on the Facebook page. If you like having Geoff on here, let's hear it. Let's see if we can get some more on here. If if you're upset that we have done a non-horror film, let us know. We may or may not listen to you, but we do appreciate your feedback. More we make this show because it's fun for us to do, but we want the audience to enjoy it as well. So would love to hear from you guys. Any kind of ideas, yeah. But so on that note, well, here let me. Have you watched the new Evil Dead trailer?
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, actually.
It looks so super gory and amazing.
Yeah, I hear that they're actually giving it the kind of big movie feel. Mm-hmm. They're making this one legit. Now, don't get me wrong, Sam Raimi's incredibly talented, and he took what was, from what I hear, it was a very grueling shoot for everybody involved. Mm-hmm. So he took that and somehow wrangled it into one of the most iconic movies of the B-horror genre. Instantly recognizable, made Bruce Campbell a huge star.
Yep.
And but yeah, this new one is big time.
Well, from what I've heard, and this is partially with my conversation from the guys from Harley Poe, Christian and Joe specifically, on Friday, we were talking about the new Evil Dead trailer, and they had mentioned that Sam Raimi apparently has been pretty hands-on with the whole process, and so is Bruce Campbell. I guess they're both producers on the show.
That's a good thing.
And like Joe was saying, that there's a scene in like the preview where like all these old movies had Sam Raimi's old car in it,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like a scene in the trailer that showed the car, and they were mentioning that like maybe that meant, and I don't know if this is what they're actually doing, but if it is actually kind of cool. Maybe that car has just been there and it's been abandoned, and so what this is just another movie. Like, because there's no Ash in this one, and I've heard there's a lot of people complaining about that. But what that could mean is that the previous events with Ash and everybody have happened, and that car is still out there because of that. And there's just another person finding this cabin in the woods, and being stupid enough to release the evil again.
Now, with the car, I remember at one point they drive to the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Now they ended up taking it back. They had to. I couldn't remember if they took it back from the bridge or if it got left out there.
But they might have left it out there. They made it sound like maybe the car was just sitting abandoned in the woods somewhere, or it could be back at the cabin. But either way, because of the way things happened, the car didn't get.
Maybe the car is a demon.
This would actually have to discount the some of the actions of the third movie, because the car did actually go back in time.
Too.
But I could see where they might discount that, because the third movie is kind of silly, and
very tongue in cheek.
So, but so that's out there now. There was a bootleg a couple weeks ago I talked about, but yeah, if you get a chance, go and watch the Red Band Evil Dead trailer. It looks gory and disturbing as hell, and as a longtime fan of Evil Dead, I for one think it looks worth checking out. I think it's going to be an enjoyable film. I think that's March of next year that's coming out, but yeah, check out the trailer now. But yeah, unless there's anything else going on, I think that's probably going to be our episode for this week. So, thanks, Geoff, for joining. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I don't know. I don't want to think about how this show would be like if it was just me by myself.
We wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah. So, that's so I'm Mike, and this is
Geoff, closing out.
Yep. Have a good week, guys.